Welcome, everyone. My name is Taurus the Legend. Thank you so much for joining us in our episode 2 of the SAP Garage series. Today, we're going to be covering Extend SAP S/4HANA Business Processes on SAP BTP, Kyma, Runtime. We got a couple of great speakers. My colleagues, Gopal Anand, full stack engineer, and Shankari GR, developer at SAP Business Technology Platform. They'll be covering the SAP Discovery Center mission, Extend SAP S/4HANA Business Processes on SAP BTP. The link to the mission, I'll be posting the link in the chat, but all presentation material as well as the recording for today's session will be uploaded to our main hub. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube, so you guys can listen to it if you want to listen to the recording again. Before we get started, I want to just let you guys know of some of our upcoming webinars as well as some on-sites. Our next SAP Garage series will be on March the 1st, sorry, in exactly 1 month. In terms of some of the upcoming webinars that we have a 20-episode series focused on the universe of SAP BTP in a nutshell. So if you're interested in joining, we're already on episode 2. Yesterday we had a whole episode on the Discovery Center as well. So next week we're going to be talking about data governance. So if you want to join that, I'll put the links in the chat as well. As a companion to the universe of BTP in a nutshell series, we have 2 companion episodes, from no code to pro code, the right solution for everyone. This is a deeper dive of one of the sessions we're going to be covering in the universe of BTP in a nutshell. And the second one is a 3-episode series on how to leverage SAP Build, low-code app development and automation. So if you're interested in joining any one of those, please feel free to register to those. I'll be putting all of those links in the chat. Finally, we do have an on-site event. So for those in Madrid or find themselves in Madrid on March the 14th, we have an on-site event connecting you with all of our SAP topic experts, the SAP BTP Customer Forum. It's a full-day event on-site with a lot of different tracks covering data to value, RISE, as well as SAP integration, among other topics. There are several others that are being planned. As soon as those get more firmed up, I will be letting you guys know of those dates as well. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Anand.
Thanks, Taurus, for the introduction. And hi, everyone. Welcome to the session. Today, I will be taking you through the mission which we recently released. So the name of the mission is Extend S/4HANA Business Process on Kyma Runtime. So the use case which we are talking here is that we have a business partner validation firm. So what happens is whenever there is a new business partner who gets onboarded, before you start any transaction with that business partner, we try to validate their business partner's credibility, whether they really exist, or do they have some offices, are they real business or not. So to validate that, normally there is a vendor, third-party vendor, who goes out to the office of the partner or the business partner, and then they see the credibility, they verify their status, and then they say that, okay, this business partner is correct, and then you can start doing the transaction. So how it in real world, there are 2 ways you can do this. Either you give access to the third-party vendor to your on-premise system or your HANA system, and then they have to travel and they have to again connect with the VPN so that they can start accessing the on-premise system. On the other hand, the easier or the better way is just to give the business partner firm or the third-party vendor access to only the application of business partner related data with specific roles or authorization, that they can only read the business partner details and write back some information. So initially, when the business partner is onboarded, we mark the business partner as blocked so that they can't do any transaction. And only when the business partner is validated, we change the status and then they can start doing the transaction. So to solve that, we use Kyma Runtime, and here's how the solution looks like. So on the left side, if you see, let me just minimize this. Yeah. On the right side, we have the S/4HANA on-premise system where we are exposing the business partner APIs. On the left side, we have the business technology platform where we are developing the application Kyma Runtime, which is Kubernetes-based managed offering on BTP. Here we are using cloud application-based programming model to make our microservice. The service we call it as business partner validation service. We also have a serverless function which works to generate an QR code, and then the QR code is written back to S/4HANA system. So, and the data is processed into the HANA database. So the flow is whenever the business partner is created, we trigger an event, which the event mesh receives and pass it to the business partner validation application. Then the third-party vendor sees the notification that there is a new business partner who is created. Then the business partner is validated by going on the site. And once the validation process is done, the business partner who is newly created is marked as verified. When we mark it as verified, another event gets triggered. And that event is received again in event mesh, which is then read by the image processor serverless function. Now this serverless function generates an QR code, and also it changes the business partner's blocked status to unblocked. And if there is change in, let's say, address or some fields, those fields are also updated here in the serverless function. And then it is written back to the S/4HANA on-premise system via REST API using connectivity and destination service. So this is the flow of the solution, which we are going to see in the mission. Going back to the project board. So here in this project board, we have multiple phases. So discover phase where we can understand more about how a discovery center can work. The story of this mission. So let me just quickly log in. So this is the story which I already explained to you, the business partner validation story. Now, more of what is BTP, the integration suite, and so on. And one interesting feature which recently got released was support of cloud application programming model CAP on Kyma. So I will just go here. Let me just open this documentation. So this is the Kapayar's official documentation based on Node.js. We are seeing like how to build Kyma or Kubernetes-based application on BTP using the CAP model. So if you see here, there are, this is the flow of the application where we just use one CLI tool called CDS add helm, which generates the deployment files or the configuration which are required to deploy the app to Kyma runtime. Also, it generates these services and so on. And it also has a configuration to build the images, and then you push the image to your container registry. And then you can deploy the application to the Kyma runtime where it generates the different deployment files, jobs, pods, and so on. So this is the brief information, and this is the small command which makes your any CAP-based application which can run on Kyma runtime. So this is what you will find in Discover section more about how or the frameworks which are used in the application. In the Explore section, we have different definitions. For example, we have definition of what are the data models used. So we have 3 tables used here: notifications, addresses, and status. And then what are the fields which are stored in these files? So I will just open the first one, which will take us to the GitHub repository. So to work on this mission, we have to basically come here, do this cloning of the project or fork this project, and then ready to go. So now there are different cards. So I explained the card of this database service. Similarly, we have services like the microservice business partner service, which is built using CAP. We have the QR code generator microservice, so serverless code, which is again running on Kyma, which is another feature offered by Kyma runtime. So taking you here quickly, I can go to the SRV, which is the CAP's code implementation. And you can see like we have different logic written here. Like for example, on business partner creation event, I'm doing some validation, and then reading data, writing it to HANA database, logging some information for better traceability and so on. So this is how the code in CAP is written, but yeah, it's very common across all the runtimes. Then we have the QR code generator here, which is the serverless code. And if I go to the handler.js, which is the root of this application, so we have different configurations written here. I can also add like util.js, where I have different utility functions, like something which generates the API token and so on. So again, this is how the application structure looks like. And then we have a folder called charts, where the deployment configuration is generated. We'll come to this in the upcoming section. So this is about explore section. And okay, meanwhile, we'll also, perfect. Now, once we understood how the app is, the structure and the skeleton of the project, the frameworks used here, to start working, we need to do a setup of the application. So to do the setup, we can use two approaches. The first approach is using the SAP BTP setup automator. So if I open this, and I will refer to this particular use case. So normally, I will just go to the next card and explain how it works in standard way. So we have to create a sub account where we want to deploy the application. So you will have to come here, you have to create a new sub account, give it some name, assign the entitlements, which is needed by the project, enable Kyma runtime. So I have to also add Kyma runtime as an entitlement, HANA Cloud tools, and here are some more services like event mesh, connectivity, proxy plan, SAP build work zone. So these are the services which are needed to run the application, and then assign some roles to my user and so on. So quite some process, quite some clicks which are needed to make the whole process work. So instead of that, we can have the BTP setup automator. So here is the instruction. So where is, let me quickly go with the previous. Yeah. Here is the instruction. So basically, this is a very basic command which we have to execute, fill some basic details like email ID and also the global account details. And the stuff is which saw in the previous parts, like you have to manually click and fill all the fields, assign the entitlements. Everything is automatically taken care, and you are given a fresh account which has all the quotas there, all the entitlements which are there. Kyma is enabled. Your user has the roles needed to run the Kyma application or the Kyma runtime. So this is about the setup part. So you can do it very easily with the BTP setup automator. Now I will just go, and yeah. And just to, before we go to the next chapter or next section, I will explain some services which are used in this application. So we are using event mesh, which is to receive events from on-premise system, and then it is then passed to the CAP application. We have the Kyma runtime where the application is running. We have destination and connectivity service. These two services are used to show the destination details of this S4 system, and also set up the on-premise connectivity using connectivity service. To persist data like business partners, status, and so on, we have the HANA Cloud database. And to finally integrate the application, HTML5 application, we have the work zone where we can see have the application in the launchpad. So these are the entitlements. Now we saw how to do the setup for the account, and also how do we configure the global account. So with this, we will have something like, let me quickly open the account. So when we do the setup automator part or manual step, you will get an account like this, where you have all the entitlements. The subscriptions are done. So you see, we have Cloud Foundry, which is not enabled. We have the Kyma environment, which is enabled. We have the link to the dashboard, and also the kube config, which is needed to connect to the Kyma cluster from my laptop to the remote system. So I can quickly, this is already downloaded here. Now, I will also have to generate a token quickly. Let me do that. Perfect. Yeah, so this is a Kyma dashboard. So once everything is enabled, we get a feel like this, where you can see the different info metrics like the CPU uses, the commitment, and so on of the Kyma runtime. So now, not going too much into the details of Kyma runtime, I will go to the next steps. So now you have the global account. Now we have to create HANA Cloud database. So these are the steps mentioned in the documentation. HANA Cloud now supports both the runtime schema and Cloud Foundry. So once you create the database, there is a very basic step which we have to follow at the end to map the schema cluster to the HANA database so that you can start creating SJ containers and then persist data. So to do that, there is a command provided to us. Let me just copy this command. Was a file name 35. Perfect. So I will just point my configuration to the Kyma cluster. It will take my login and then, come on. So now I have logged to the Kyma cluster from my local system. And to check that, I can say cube ctl get pods. And it will return me the pods which are there in the default namespace, probably no pods. So namespaces. It will return me the namespaces which are there in my cluster. So you can see there are quite some namespaces already there. And I have also cloned my CAP application in my local system. So this is a CAP application. Now I will go back to the mission. To get the cluster ID, which is needed to map HANA database, I will just copy this command and just paste it here. Quickly. Okay, small code was missing. Perfect. So I got my cluster ID, was just missing a code at the end. Now I will go to the HANA database manager. So I go to instance and subscriptions, HANA Cloud. Then I will go to manage the configurations and quickly edit the configuration here. Go to the bottom and here you see I have a environment here. So I can click on add mapping. I can choose the runtime, either it's Cloud Foundry or the Kyma runtime. So I will choose Kyma runtime. Then it's asking me to provide the cluster ID, which I provide. And if I have to restrict this HANA database to particular namespace, so I can even provide a namespace. But for now, I can just say that point the cluster to HANA database to the whole cluster and I can click on save. So now the mapping of Kyma is done with the HANA database. So we can start creating the database artifacts or deploy the application. Now I can go to the next card. And here we have to create a namespace. So namespace is where we have to, let's say for that particular deployment, I want to create a name. So I will go and segregate. So I can go to the namespace tab, click here, create namespace. I can say Gopal2. And this sidecar injections enabled because we have to create a tunnel between Kyma cluster and this namespace and this for HANA system. So for this, we have to enable the sidecar injection. And let me just click on create. So my namespace is ready, and then I can start deploying the application. Now, going back to the setup part. So we have all the setup done here. All now we need is some APIs, which Shankari will share. So in API Hub, we have the business partner API, which we are going to use. So you can go to API Hub, search for business partner, and then this is the API which we are going to use for the application. And then if you want to try this thing in HANA, like the S4HANA on-premise system, you can use your own system if it's provided by your organization, or you can go to Cloud Appliance Library, create a new system for yourself. Or we also have an option to deploy and test this application with mock server. So if you don't have access to S4HANA system, you can use this particular option too, which Sankri will again explain, which you can use to deploy the application. So with this, I am almost all done. I have the account ready. I have the HANA database ready, and the Kyma cluster is mapped to it. I have the setup locally. And I also have cloned the CAP application. So all which is right now missing is I need to add the Kyma deployment configuration here. So I will just run the command. CDS add help. Just one line of command. And if you see, there is a new folder which got created called chart. If I come here, I have a file called values.yaml. This values.yaml has all the required information on the configuration which I have to fill in order to make the application run. So for example, the application is going to use HANA database. So it's asking if I have to pass a name to the database service. I have to also give my container repository. If I want to scale the application or anything, so I can also pass the resource limits, like how much memory, CPU I want to give to the application. Then I also configure the HANA deployer, which will be creating my tables, destination service, and so on. And then Kyma will, the CAP will itself take care of the service instance creation, the configuration, and everything else. So that's all. And I will hand over to Shankari because now I have did the basic configuration. The app is ready to be deployed in the Kyma runtime. And all you have to do now is fill some information. Over to you, Shankari.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gopal. Let me share my screen.
So Gopal, just an FYI, there's a couple of questions in the chat if you want to take that opportunity to answer those questions.
Sure, I will just going through.
So, able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get started. So the first part, like Gopal explained, like what are the prerequisites to deploy the application. So like we saw like how to prepare our BTP account, like what are the requisite, what are the resources needed, what are the entitlements we had to have, and how do we set up our workspace. We have also cloned the source code, and we also saw how to generate the Helm chart with just a single command which is available in CDS. So now let's see how do we deploy the application to SAP BTP Kyma runtime. So as Gopal said, there are two options. One is like we can deploy it with SAP S4HANA on-premise system, and the second option is like deployment with a mock server. So in case like if you don't have an access to SAP S4HANA on-premise system, you can go with this mock server option. So this mock server is a CAP-based application. So which is built like which can be again deployed to Kyma runtime, and this mock server mainly mimics the characteristics of the S4HANA OData APIs which has been used in this application. So mainly we use API business partner and attachment service in this application. So these two APIs it mocks. So making it easy for the developers. So let's get started with deploy option with SAP S/4HANA on-premise system. So the first one is like in order to deploy our application, we need to find the values for a few of the placeholders. So these placeholders would be used in values.yaml file in the Helm chart which we have generated. So that since Kyma is based on Kubernetes runtime, so like we need a container storage repository. So in this case, like we will be using Docker. So a Docker account would be so we need a Docker account, name of the repository. And if it's not a public, in case if it's a private repository, like we need credentials, Docker secret credentials for your Artifactory. The next is Git username and password. So this is nothing but the GitHub username, and password is the developer token. So I can show you how you can generate the developer token. So you can go to GitHub and you can click on the avatar and you can just click on settings. So here, if you see, if you scroll down, you would see developer settings. So under developer settings, like you can go to personal access tokens, tokens classic, and then you can generate a new token for your repository. So this would be your developer token. This would be your password. So both Git username and password had to be base 64 encoded before and then filled in the values.yaml file. So Git URL is the URL of the repository. And finally, the branch would be like most probably it should be the main branch. So in case if you fork the repository, like please use the relevant URL. So this is about the placeholders. So now let's deploy the application to SAP BTP Kyma runtime. So before deploying, like as Gopal said, like we need to clone the source code, and then from the Kyma side, like we had to create a namespace with sidecar injection enabled. And in addition to that, there is one more administrator task which needs to be performed by our administrator while enabling Kyma runtime. So that is like the admin had to create the connectivity service instance. So in case if it's not available, so you can use this command to create the in connectivity service instance, enable connectivity in your Kyma runtime. So this is an one-off task, and the connectivity is enabled once for a cluster. So in our case, like I have already created this connectivity service while enabling the Kyma runtime. So the next is like we need to build the images for our application. So currently we have 3 microservices. One is for DB, the other one is the CAP service, and the other one is like UI. Third one is UI. So for all 3, we need to have an image. So let me go to my make file. So this is a placeholder. Like here you would see Docker repository like this. So you can replace it with your account, and if you run make push images, so this will automatically run all the scripts here. So it will do npm install, and then it will also do cds build -- production, and then it takes care of building db image, cap image, and then ui image, and it pushes all these images to the docker repository. So in the interest of time, like I'm not going to build the images, I have done it already before the session. So what is the next step? So the next step is to fill all the values.yaml. So the convenience which we have here is like we need not come up with all the resources which needs to be deployed to Kyma runtime. So CDS provides a feature called add help. So using CDS add help, the chart would be generated automatically. So this Gopal have already shown you. So now we have the chart. we have the image ready. The only thing which is pending is like we have to fill in this values.yaml file, and we had to deploy the application to Kyma Rented. So what are the values which we need to? The first one is like we need the domain name for our cluster. So this is our cluster. So we need to get the domain. So this command will give you the domain. I'm going to use a public Docker repository, so I'll leave the image pool secret as empty, and we need to change the release name, Docker account. So SRV basically calls the like it needs the serverless URL in order to send the data to serverless. So we need to have it in under END. So the next is connectivity service secret. So this connectivity service had to be enabled only once per cluster. So this is my cluster under namespace. I think session timed out. 1 second. Yeah, only once we are expected to configure the connectivity service instance. So I have already created. So this is my namespace, which is demo. And inside demo, this is my connectivity service instance. So this enables the connectivity to on-premise system. And so this is the name of my secret. So this secret name had to be copied here. So my release name would be demo. So these are the values which we had identified in the previous step. Like we had determined placeholder values for GitHub username and password. These are the base 64 encoded values. So now we have filled all the required details. So executing this command will create the required service instances, the deployments, and the other resources required to deploy this application. So Helm takes care of everything. Okay, let it get deployed. Like meanwhile, I'll show you an running application. So I have already deployed and so I have one more sub account. So where I have already deployed the application. So in the interest of time. So once the application is just deployed, like you will see the service instances. So these are the service instances which would be created. So we have an CAP HANA, which is an HDI container. Connectivity we have already seen. Destination service, event mesh, like which is used as a queue here. HTML5 apps repo host, and then XSUA, which is for authorization. And if you see the deployment part, so you could see the SRV, which is our service. So like once the application is deployed, you will be able to see all these things. So now let's move on to the next step. So here we have two types of communication. The first one is like event-based communication. So basically, whenever a new business partner is created in SAP S/4HANA system, an event is triggered and the event mesh receives the data, and and the CAP application, which is in BTP Kyma runtime, pulls the data. So this is one type of communication, and the other one is like API-based communication. The S/4HANA system also exposes OData APIs. So the extension application can directly call these OData APIs and then do a get call or get the details, necessary details for the for processing the data. So there are two types of communication. Let's for these two, like we need to do some setup. The first one is like configure event-based communication between SAP S/4HANA and SAP Event Mesh. In this case, if you see, so here what we need is like we need the secret for the event mesh, whichever we are going to, we are going to use. So here, if you see, this is the messaging service secret. You can do a decode and then you can see all the details. So these details need to be configured in the SAP S/4HANA on-premise system. So using these details, like we will create a channel, subscribe topics to the channel. So how do we do? We will go to our workspace. There is an file called as event mesh template.json. So these placeholder values had to be copied from messaging service instance key. So once that is done, you can copy this and you can go to your on-premise system. So the transaction name for this is like IWXBE and /config. So configure enterprise event channel. So you can just click on via service key, give a name, provide a name for the channel, and then you can copy paste the entire secret. So once done, like you will get a channel here. So I have already created a channel. So you can activate or deactivate, and then you can click on check connection to check whether the channel creation is successful or not. So once this is done, like we also need to provide the outbound bindings. So here, if you see, the topic name which we want is like we wanted to communicate with business partner APIs. So we had to search for business partner here. So we have these outbound bindings like business partner created and business partner changed. These two can be added. So once this setup is done, communication between like whenever a new BP is created, an event would be triggered and the data would be received in event mesh. So this is one step. So what is the next step? The next step is like we had to do the connection between our S/4HANA and our BTP sub account. So this is required for API based communication. So that like you have to go to the cloud connector. and then you can click on add sub account. So let me log in again. Yeah, so you can click on add sub account, and you can put the region. So this is the region, and sub account ID would be, you can go to your global account BTP cockpit, and you can check for the sub account ID here. So this would be the sub account ID, and username and password would be your username and your password. So once this is done, like, you can give save, and you'll be able to find the dashboard, your sub account in this dashboard. So once the sub account is available, like, now we need to establish the connection between cloud and on-premise. For that, you can click on cloud to on-premise plus button, and then it's an ABAP system. Protocol is HTTP. Internal host would be your internal host. Port would be, have to give your host input, and virtual host. In my case, like, I'll use a short name. I'll go with so once the system, like, you can click on check internal host and then finish. So you could see the status is reachable. So this is how you establish a connection between BTP cockpit and on-premise system. So once that is done, you can come here to the cloud connectors part, and you can see your cloud connector has been connected. It also says what is the exposed backend system. And after this, like, we need to create a destination. So this is the destination which I have created. So still, so you can just give the virtual host what is the proxy type, authentication, and location ID. And if it's a basic authentication, you should give your username and password for the S4HANA on-premise system. You could see the connection to S4HANA is successful. So now, once all these things are done, your application is ready to consume. Let's quickly run the application and see how it looks like. Okay. I think there is a delay from my side. So now let's quickly test the application. We'll do an end-to-end testing of the application. So this is the extension application which we have deployed in Kyma runtime. So as Gopal said, like, if we wanted to add some custom implementation to the on-premise solution, instead of doing that in the actual product, like, we can create an extension application. The extension application can be a microservices based application, or it can be as small as a serverless function. So so that it can keep the on-premise solution clean. So this is the application which we have deployed in Kyma. So now let's create a business partner in S/4HANA on-premise system. So the transaction for it is /in BP. I'll create a business partner with some dumping, with some test data, sample data. So, and I'll also mark the BP as blocked, and then I'll be clicking on save. So once that is done, we'll go back to the application. So yes, the event is triggered and we could see the data in our extension application. So as per our scenario, the third party vendor would be verifying this business partner address and other details. And once he does that, he will edit the BP here and he will mark the business partner as verified. So if there are any corrections to be made in the address, that also can be made here. And then he saves the data. So once the data is saved, again this data would be transferred to serverless function. The serverless function would do some processing, and then using the API based communication, it updates the data back to the S/4HANA on-premise system. So let's go back to the on-premise system. So this is our BP. So now it should have been updated. Now the central block has been removed because the third party vendor have verified the details. And if you see in the address, you could see the business partner has been marked as verified, and the street name has also been changed. So this is how this is the end-to-end scenario which we have built around SAP BTP Kyma Runtime. So now let's go back to our mission. So let's see, there are other stages. So we have seen how to run the business partner application with the S/4HANA on-premise system. So now let's see how we can deploy a mock server. So mock server is available in the branch called as mock server. So this is our GitHub sample. And if you go, sorry. Yeah, and if you go here, you could see a branch called as mock server. So like you can clone that branch. So if you come here, the process is again the same. So we have a like chart, and chart will have a values.yaml file. We also need to build the image for the mock server. So how that can be done is like other steps have been documented here. If you come to deploy the application to BTP Kyma runtime, set up mock server, you could see the commands to build the mock application. So we need to do a CDS build, pack build, and then docker push to your docker artifactory. So once that is done, we need to update the domain and image name. So this can be updated here, and this release name is the release name of the CAP app which we have deployed already. So basically, this mock application listens to the sends data to the messaging service to which our CAP application is being configured. So once that this is done, we can go ahead and do a Helm upgrade. This is also, it's a single step. So this will install the mock application in the Kyma Runtime. So I have already deployed a mock server in my sub account, which I was showing the demo previously. So if you see mock SRV is here, and I can get the UI. It is being exposed to the public internet via API rules. And if you see, this is the API rule. So now how can I call this? So we can go to Postman. So this is the post call. So the URL of the application and the API which we are going to call. So in this case, SAP OPU data SAP and API underscore business partner would be our API. So one small change which we need to do here is like we need to configure the destination. So currently we have configured on-premise system. So this is the destination. So this is also the same way. Like you can click on new destination and enter the mock service URL here. Proxy type would be internet and it's an no authentication. So our CAP application has been configured to listen to read the details from S4H destination. So it is required to change the name so that our call is info. System. So once save is done, like you can go to the Postman. So I'll edit the value of BP and I'll click on send. So it has been created. So if you check the search term, it would be null, and business partner, whether the partner is blocked or not. So it says the partner is blocked as true. Now let's check the application. So this data would be already present. So this mock application also sends the data to the event mesh, and our CAP application receives the data from the again from the event mesh. So if you see, yeah, so our business partner has been created, and it comes here. This, so you can mark it as verified and then save. So you can do a get request here, and then you can see whether. So now if you see, the search term has been updated with verified. So this is how you run the extension application using mock server. So yeah, I think it's time up and we are almost to the end of the session. So this Discovery Center mission also offers you to provide your feedback. And in case if you are stuck in any of the steps and if you need clarification, you can contact us directly via the support link. Yeah, that's it from my side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shankar. Thank you, Gopal. If you guys have any questions for either Gopal or Shankara, please do type your questions in the chat or unmute your line and ask your question. I think Gaurav, you've answered most of the questions as well as Gopal. Have we missed any questions in the chat? I think we've answered any. If we miss a question, please do retype your question or unmute your line and ask your question. We do have a couple of minutes left. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Shankari and Gopal, for a great session. Their presentation material will be uploaded to our Customer Value Network Hub, as well as the recording for today's session. So please do check back, and I will be sending a follow-up email with the link to that. So with that, I want to take this opportunity to thank you all again for joining us this month for the SAP Garage series. I hope you'll join us again next month for another great session. Also, please do take note of some of the other webinars that are being run. If you're interested, the links to those are in the chat. If you can't find them, just send me a quick email and I'll send those links to you as quickly as possible. And with that, have a great afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you're located. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks a lot.